Everybody, and welcome to my channel. And this time it's all about what I have created in August. I'm having to try and remind myself where I'm up to. We're actually moving house at the moment, so everything is really all over the place. And every month I say, oh, I haven't done much this month, and then I find that I have a huge pile and I've actually done more than I thought. Trouble is, this month I think it might be right. I haven't done as much as usual. However, I have done some, and I would like to show you. So before we get into that, my name is Debbie, and I'm a mixed media artist, and basically that means that I play with all the toys in the art shop. Basically, there's nothing off limits, and I can mix them all together, which is really nice. If you like what you see here, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and leave me a comment if you have the time. I'm trying my very hardest to get back to all of them. And if you like my work and you would like to know more, do consider joining my Patreon, because it is basically an art school. So I teach all of the things that you're going to see here today. I teach over there, and a few of them are actually tutorials. When we come to a bit, sort of not to bang on about Patreon, but when I do find one in my collection that's been a tutorial, I'll mention it so you know what to expect. But we do all sorts of things. It's a great group. It's a wonderful community, and we do some art as well, which is great. So first cab off the rank, let's have a look here. It's funny because where the hell August when I was in school, which was last century, the 1980s, last century, mixed media wasn't a thing. You chose a medium and you stuck to it. So if you chose to be an oil painter, that's what you were going to be known as forever. Excuse me. Nobody did mixed media work, and I think if you had have suggested it to the teacher, they either wouldn't have known what it was exactly, or they would have headed you off down another path that suited them and the curriculum. Usually fairly cheap stuff, not a lot of know-how, certainly not a lot of knowledge passed on. I spent most of my art lessons just sitting, doing things with, just messing around. And, every now and again the teacher would remember I was there and come over and guide me in one direction or another, or suggest something. But other than that, it was very much sort of get on with it. So although I've been painting for a long time, I haven't been doing mixed media my whole life. I don't think anybody has. We've been doing it a little bit longer than the next person, or they've been doing it longer than us, but not many people have done mixed media their entire art career. If you're one of them, please let me know. Drop into the comments, and let me know, because it's interesting. I haven't spoken to many people at all who have done it for a long time. So this sort of mixed media happened to me because I was dissatisfied with pure watercolor. Then I was dissatisfied in oil paint, acrylic, all those things. Those were my main focuses, and I wasn't satisfied. I wanted more texture. I wanted more nuance. I wanted more layers. I would go into an art shop and I'd buy the things that I went in there for, but then I'd be side-eyeing all the things that I didn't need because I don't use them, because I'm not there's no such thing as mixed media. Mixed media was a term that was, it was not really art. It was more sort of, it was almost more crafty where I went to school. This may be different where you were. So what have I done? Let's try to get back on the topic just for 5 minutes. This is what I do with mixed media, and this is what I have done in August. So just to sort of get back on topic, I'm fascinated with fish at the moment. And I have waves on this. I have a bit of a fish thing from time to time. I fall deeply in lust with fish, paint them, and then move on again and do something else. And there's a couple of fish in this video. So here is one. And again, this is mixed media. So this has got all the things thrown at it. It's got watercolor, it's got Neocolor 2, it's got colored pencils, there is dip pen and ink, and all sorts there. And I love the effects that I can get. And why I love mixed media is because when one stops working, like for example, the paper won't take any more colored pencil, because even though if you put it on in fine layers, there is still a finite amount of layers that you can put on with coloured pencil. So that's when I might swap to a pastel then, or acrylic gouache, or dip pen and ink. It just depends on what I want to create. And this is what I love about it. You've got all these things you think, oh, wow, you know, I've bought this ink. What can I do with it? Well, there's lots and lots of ink detailing in this fish. There's even more ink detailing in this wren and brambles. And this was one leading up. We had this tutorial in, this is a Patreon tutorial, and colouring these leaves. And, okay, this one's got a bit of a rough birth, actually. It's using the Neocolor to 50th anniversary. Just let me see if I can grab a set. And I bet it's not the right one because there are 5. And naturally, because I have full set syndrome, I've got all of them. Let me see. Oh my God, I've got the right one. This is the dark set. And this here is Caput Mortuum. And it's the best purple I've seen in a long time. I love it to bits. And it's in this set, and I'm too scared to use it because I know they're not going to repeat it, or at least they're not going to at the moment. I'm going to do a bit of a hot take here, so be kind, because we'll see who's right anyway out of all of us. I personally, I'm a bit annoyed, ranting bound. I'm a bit annoyed with Caran d'Ache because they've made these little sets. Most of the colours in the set are in open stock. So if we take those out, these are all in open stock. You can buy them anytime. But the ones we've fallen in love with, that one's okay. It's not great. As you can see, I've not used it very much. Love these. That's quite similar to the usual ochre in the range. But this one, I'm too scared to use it because it's beautiful. So that what they've done is they've popped it in. They've managed to get us to buy the whole tin just to get it, even though we've all got all of these. And now they say they're not going to ever repeat these colours. So that's why I'm annoyed. They've made us fall in love with something and then whisked it away. And I think, judging by the comments I've had on past videos, there's a few of you on the same sort of page as I am, that it's not that great. It's a bit of a cash grab, and a lot of us, in fact a few people have categorically, as I've seen on other websites too, other YouTube videos, have said, right, well that's it, customer lost, I'm not going back to Caran d'Ache, I'll buy from somewhere else. I wonder if this is the whole plan, and this is my conspiracy theory, so do please put your tinfoil helmets on and make sure they are buckled securely. I wrote to the company and asked. One of my patrons did the same, so I added my voice to hers, and they told us both, no, they're not ever going to be released again. They're not going to be in open stock, which I find hard to believe. This is the conspiracy bit, because they've put time and money into developing these colours and now they're going to abandon them. That seems very, very odd marketing as a strategy. And the company has quite by definition been in business for 50 years. One wonders if they would have stayed in business so long with such a really weird way of marketing. So I suspect what they're doing at the moment is trying to encourage people to buy by creating an artificial need. So I don't know. Like I said, tinfoil helmet on, please. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying this is my supposition, because they've put money into not just these 3 colours, but the whole set has got, every set, there's 5 sets, there's 3 new colours in each set. So let's see who's right. But anyway, the point of me mentioning that, there was a point to this, was that I was so bloody cross with them that I thought, right, I'm going to see if I can fake those colours. Now, I have mixed them myself and I have come up with some colours, and my tutorial shows how. Let's just cut the long story short. We've been here long enough on this page. I have managed to fake some of the colours with other materials. And again, not just Neocolors. I have used Neocolors on here, but I've also used another Derwent product to get the colours right. So that was this. And sorry, rant over. Thank you for listening. Normal service will be resumed as soon as I calm down. I'm cross with them, as you may have imagined. So to get over my crossness, I painted a picture of a nice woodland stream. And again, I've used that lovely Caput Mortuum Neocolor in here. But here again, there's pan pastels, there's coloured pencil, there is watercolour, there is gouache, there is all sorts, and this is also a tutorial. So yeah, this one, I did another very similar one a while ago and my patrons loved it. So I said, yes, I'll do a tutorial. So this is it. And the rocks and different textures and things like that. It's one of those lovely pictures that you could add an animal or a bird. You could put something in the foreground. I could see a fox sitting on here and I can see it so clearly. I've decided to do a tutorial for them on that as well. So another similar sort of mountain picture with similar sorts of elements, but we'll add a fox in. And when we get to that bit, you'll see where I'm going with that. I love the fact that the water's not always necessarily blue, and I love the fact that you don't always have to include a sky in your pictures. Sometimes you can be in a deep part of the forest. This could be the River Steve, and my patrons will understand that joke. And Kevin, the hill. So, yeah, you'll know what I mean. Yeah, this sort of thing. I live in Germany and there are a lot of these deep foresty glades and rivers and things like that. Every now and again, you'll see an animal if you're very lucky. Sometimes you'll see an animal if you're not very lucky. And wild pigs and wolves. I'm looking at you. I've never seen a wolf in the wild, although my husband has. And so have my cousins, so it happens. Wild pigs, I'd rather see a wolf than a wild pig, to be fair, especially in breeding season. But anyway, lots and lots of stuff here. I love these. Let me just grab one of these inks. This is Raw and Klingner Antique ink, and not sponsored in any way. I have a love affair with these inks. I love the nice big bottle too. When you look at some bottles, they're teeny and they cost the earth. These are a nice big 100ml bottle, brilliant ink. And what I love about it is it goes over the top of all the waxiness that I've got under here. Quite a lot of you ask whether I fix my pages with anything because they're quite shiny. You can see a bit of a shine there. I don't actually, not unless I'm using pan pastels or other soft pastels. I don't fix my pages with anything. It's the wax buildup from all the pencils and Neocolors and things like that. So there's a lot of wax on here and I've still managed to go over the top with those beautiful antique inks, and they're really bright and quite nice to see. So dip pen and ink over the top of it. Great. If you're looking for a good ink, I can recommend those. Willow tree. This was another tutorial on my Patreon. And this is quite recent, actually. You'll see a little bit more detail in another one here that on Thursdays, I do a masterclass for some things, either flowers, trees, birds, animals, whatever. And then on the Friday, I put that into a tutorial because when you paint a tree on a white page, it's totally different to when you put it into a scene and you've got other colours around it. So here we've got the sky, we've got background trees, we've got the river, we've got foreground grass, and that changes the look of the whole thing. And so this is a really nice, it's one of those Zen tutorials where you just get there with your markers, and I've used Zig markers to make these leaves on the willow tree, but you can use a brush and watercolor as well, depending on what you're using. But there's other things in there too. There's acrylic marker, there is dark green colored pencil just in the leaf section, then there's pan pastels in the background, the river, and all sorts in the front here and on the trunk of the tree as well. So that's actually a tutorial that's up right now. This one here, this was me playing around with foxes. That sounds so wrong, but I'm sure you know what I mean. I love these autumn themes, and I love autumn. I've been begging for autumn for some time. So on the 23rd of August, I was begging for autumn. And again, lots and lots of neo pastels, pan pastels, more ink and ink straight over the top of all those waxy layers. When I do, I don't know if you can relate to this, but sometimes I like to paint seasonally because I'm a watercolor or I'm a landscape artist, actually, not watercolor. Good grief, that was years ago. I'm looking at watercolor, so I had to say the word watercolor. Perhaps I should concentrate. I'm a mixed media artist and I'm a nature artist, so I look outside and see what I can see. Sometimes I imagine what I can see, as here, that's not what our landscape looked like on the 23rd of August. And keeping it seasonal is really, really important. So I don't necessarily have an animal that I use all year round. Sometimes I do, but sometimes I see animals and birds as a certain time of the year. For example, foxes make me think of autumn. So I tend to cluster my fox drawings around the Burr months. September, starting in August, but September, October, November, December, that sort of thing, into winter. And maybe because they look nicer then, they're more sleek and full with their coats. I don't think so, though. It's just, I think it's more because they're orange. And orange, in my brain, is autumn. It's a mess in there. And I forget from year to year what I'm doing or what I did last year with the foxes. So I'll do things and I'll do them in a huge cluster over a season. And then I don't do anything with them for the greater part of the next year before starting again. Does that happen to you as well, or am I alone in this? I'm quite happy to be alone in this because there are other weird things that need fixing, so this is just one of them. So I made my fox a little bit fluffier. Maybe it's a younger fox, maybe that's it. But as you'll see in a minute when we go on to other foxes, I've gone for a sleeker style as I went on. And I think, you know, it's the sort of fox muscles need exercising, because I haven't used them since last autumn. That is my excuse, and I'm going to stick with it. So yeah, fox sitting on a rock. Love these tangles. What I love painting is the sorts of weeds and things that you overlook. I mean, normally we would look at a picture and think, right, you know, Krakatoa erupting, we'll have that. We won't bother about the grass in the foreground. The grass in the foreground is really, really interesting, and it's got all sorts of fabulous shapes. It also anchors you to a time of the year and a place. For example, if something is quite foreign to anywhere else but that place, if you paint it, everybody knows where you are. I mean, it's not the same with these. This could be anywhere in England, especially with that house. It's kind of a mixture of things that I've seen everywhere, because this picture doesn't exist. It's out of my imagination. But having these sorts of hedgerows and things like that, it can, if you find something that's a native and it's a native to that part of the world only, it can really, really give a place in, it makes your picture unique to that place. So yeah, I like doing all those sorts of scrubby things, and it also anchors the subject into somewhere. So for example, we've got this foreground, we've got the subject, excuse me, which could be the fox. If you're a house person, you mightn't even see the fox. You might say, oh, nice house. That's the subject. I also love doing these little houses nestled into hills in the background. It's just there, but it gives context to the subject of the picture. Excuse me. This is one that I did using one of my sketches that I had done. Let me just see if I can find it. This one's on YouTube, or at least it will be by the time you see this. Let me just see if I can find it. This is the original sketch that I did, and you'll see this later on in the picture, and we'll go into it in more detail. But what I wanted to do was to zoom up on various aspects of it, because quite often a beginner will look at a sketch like that. And this is on, it's an A5 sketchbook, but it's over 2 pages. So A4 size it turned out. And a lot of beginners will look at that and say, where the hell do I start? What comes first here? And there's just so much going on. So what I wanted to do, and this was the subject of the YouTube tutorial, which you'll see on here, were panels and the power that a panel can have. So I zoomed up on the houses, which is here. I zoomed up on the head of this bird, which is here. And then I zoomed up on these berries, which is here. And I loved that. It was such a lot of fun. You can do this with a photo too. Sometimes you might take a fabulous photo of somewhere you've been, and the whole photo put to, on its own, it's just absolute overwhelm. You can't take all of it in at once, and you don't know where to start. So breaking the scene down to bits and parts and pieces can make it a lot easier to actually tackle. And then of course you can say, well, look, if I can do that, which is this bit, I can come out and put some leaves in and just go on a little bit further. So we'll get to that. That's got a story of its own, of course, but this is how that came about, and this was the tutorial that you can find here. So it's a lot of fun to be able to do this and make a big subject smaller. You can do it with any picture as well. See, for example, obviously you could do the fox, but if you don't want to do the whole fox, you could do part of a fox. You could do this bit instead. Or you could do the panel with the house in it and just a little bit of foreground. And this is what that looks like. So just sort of zooming in on bits and pieces. It's great. I urge you to try it. Foxes, like I said. Now, you can already see the difference between my fluffy little guy here. I do think it's a pup. That's why. These are my sort of grown-up foxes. Sorry if there's some shine on there. Again, like I said, it's that wax. This is all pure Neocolor too. Foxes in different poses, foxes doing things. You don't have to draw the whole fox. Here we've got one that's come out of his burrow and is so tired he fell asleep again. And some little bits of interesting foliage around just with a coloured pencil. I didn't colour them in. I didn't do anything with them, just shapes, marks on the paper. Here I started out with these were just on white paper, and then I got so into this bit that I thought, well, I will go back and put some backgrounds and some context in here. So that's sort of how that's come about. And yeah, like I said, some of it's really simple. It's just a bit of paint splashed on the paper and then a few leaf shapes. Others, I don't know, this is scribble. It's scribble, really. It really is just scribble. Imaginary flowers that could be anything. And yeah, but foxes starting to come out of their burrows. That's what I'm really liking at the moment. I mean, they've been out all bloody summer. It's nothing of the sort, but I tell myself a story when I'm painting. And why is that there? Well, it's because of this and this and this. And I build these pictures in my mind by having a story for each one as to why might that be happening? What's this fox doing? Well, I mean, he's sniffing something. Not necessarily sniffing this fox because his panel stops here. So he's sniffing something. Maybe there's a mouse in there. I don't know, maybe something's dead and he likes the smell of that. But that's how I compose my pictures, and how I paint what's going on is by telling myself little sort of stories to go with it. Like I said, this one's a pup. He's so tired he can't even make it all the way out of the burrow and fallen asleep again. Which, yeah, it helps. That's how it helps me paint. More foxes. This one was quite recently. This was yesterday, I think. Actually, looks like 31st there. I can't see my stamp in all the bits and bobs. Here again, I did the background, pan pastel, and at the moment I'm loving using not blue for the sky, which I normally do, but this one, if I can just grab that, is permanent green tint on here, and also phthalo green tint. So sorry about the shine there. These two colours, as well as my usual phthalo blue, these two seem to say something about the time. I don't know why, because the skies aren't green here and I'm not colourblind. My husband is though, so perhaps I'm trying to show him what I'm painting. I'm not colourblind, and yet it still seems to go. Maybe it's just a change, maybe, I've no idea. But anyway, I did it, I liked it, and I've done it with gouache as well, so it works really quite well. But what I had fun with here was all these tangled sort of lines, basically. What I've done here is a continuous line drawing of each of these tangled sort of weeds, like dock and things like that, they've had their day. Their life cycle's pretty much finished, and they're just really crispy hedgerow things. So we've got fill in with watercolour in the background, and then the ink that I showed you before over the top. This one is Caput Mortuum, and for those of you who've been with me for a while will know that this is it's my colour. I love that, the way people love Payne's Grey. I love Payne's Grey too, but Caput Mortuum is my absolute favourite. So a very thoughtful looking fox. Again, some rocks and bits of context. A patchwork quilt of farmland in the background, which always looks nice. But just with the dip pen and ink filling in the middle here, or the front, and some pan pastel and Neocolor 2, which is the water-soluble one, down the bottom. But what I've done is I've rubbed it with my finger rather than dissolving it. And I'm doing that a lot lately. I like the effect. Here again, it gives this nice sort of fill-in effect, but you retain some texture, and it's much, much easier to control rubbing it with your finger to blend it than putting water on it. Some of this is Neocolor 1 too, which is the non-water soluble one. And I've actually used my Neocolor 1s with the new Caran d'Ache Neo Art 6901. Let me just see if I can show you. I have a big tin here and I've popped them all in together. It's just a riot. I'm a bit of a digger, so I don't mind sort of going through. Also, why I do this is because the colours will mix naturally. And when I want something, I might look at that. This is a Payne's Grey and a bronze. Now, I might not have thought of putting those two colours together that way. So after digging, I'll see new colour combinations. But these are the Neo Art 6901s, which are the ones that have been recently released. These are the Neocolor 1s, which have been about for quite a while. And Sahara Yellow is my crush colour here. Loving that, using it a lot. And these are, none of these are water soluble, but you can use the warmth of your finger to rub them and dissolve them. So they work really well like that, and you get this lovely soft effect, which also has a bit of texture and fills it in. As I've said to my students, and those of you who are watching this early because pre-release, are probably sick of hearing this, but you need to just make shapes when you're filling in an area like this, and your brain will do the rest. So, for example, I don't know what these are, these little bits at the back here, but they could be absolutely anything. What I'm intending them to be is the remnants of something that's had its heyday in the summer. It's now brown and crispy. It's dead. Its life cycle has finished. So when you look at this whole thing, most people will accept that. They know I haven't painted a number 7 bus. It's something in a hedgerow, and your brain will actually fill those gaps in. So when you're painting, don't agonize over these fillers. Just make marks, because quite often your brain will do the rest. Same with these. I don't know. They're probably dock. They might be, or they might not be. Maybe I could put some more dots on them and make them into dock. Or they're just a random thing that you find growing on the side of a road and a fox has managed to sit in them. Same here. I love these berries. I've been wanting to do a song thrush for ages. I've had a photo on my phone that I got from, I think it was Unsplash, and love it. So that was time. And this is how I'm sort of calming myself in the evenings after packing and working all day, and then packing our massive house, which has to now go into quite a lot smaller one. So I'm still trying to keep my art practice in the evening, just as a bit of downtime. But here again, some gouache in here, pan pastel, lots of other pastels. I'm using a lot more Neocolor this autumn than I have ever used. I mean, it's the first day of autumn today, so not much. I'm using more Neocolor 1 and the Neo Art as well than I've ever used before. And also the Neocolors. I really do the number 2. Neocolor 2, you know what I mean. I hope you know what I mean. I'm using more than I've ever used before. And I love the way they integrate with watercolors, with gouache, with ink, and with colored pencil, and all the other things that I love to use. They just fit in beautifully. When the Neo Arts came out, these ones here, I wasn't sure if they would fit in, and I was very proud to just have bought 10. That was good for me. I then went back and bought the rest of the set. That's my full set syndrome, and of course, as I said in one of my last videos, I also have an art material deficiency disorder where my body can't make its own art materials, so I have to supplement. I'm sure you're all the same. So here we go, book number 2. Let's find where we're supposed to be. What's that? I don't think so. August. that might be, yes, it is in August. Hang on, I'll just find where we're supposed to be here. About here, 5th of August. This was my mum's birthday. And again, another same sort of thing. We did a thing for Patreon, like I showed you before. There was a tutorial for that. But I also did a page beforehand on wrens, different wrens in different poses. And that was the day before. So that integrated beautifully into the brambles and things that we did. And again, all sorts of things in here, as I'm sure you can imagine. This was maybe because of Mum's birthday. She's been gone for quite a while now. So, you know, her birthday, you know what it's like, I'm sure. So I just painted nothing. And yeah, I don't hate it. I don't love it. What I don't love is this. I bought a new off-brand jelly plate because I do a lot of jelly plate printing, and I've got a technique that I've developed. To my knowledge, it's pretty unique. So yeah, this was a cheap one. It's absolutely awful. I hate it. It's too stiff. I think it might need sort of knocking into shape, but what I was trying to do was some tiles, which, as you can see, if you fit them all together with this little corner detail, would be, you know, quite tiley. I just don't like this one. It's not a great, I wanted the size, and the only brand I could find this 4-inch or 10 centimeter square. I think it was Craftelia or something. I'm not impressed with it at the moment. However, watch this space, because this was its first day out, and jelly plates need to be broken in. You won't get great results the day before, or the first day of use. They won't play nice. So if you've actually you might have seen somebody using a jelly plate and you've thought, you know what, I'm going to go buy one, and you buy it and it just doesn't work. People have tried washing them. They've tried oiling them differently, all sorts of things. Please don't bother. The best thing you can do is to use it. Make marks on it, even if you just make all sorts of random marks and print a couple of pages, because it will get better. And if you're using my particular technique, it gets better quite quickly. This has got pan pastel in it. It's got acrylic gouache. And then I've followed up, because I worked that. Once I've pulled the print, I then work back into it with my mixed media. But there's no transfer method. You paint straight onto the plate, you print it, and I've got lots of videos on that. So it works really quite well, but new plates, hate it. You've got to really make them behave. This is one, again, playing around, 7th of August. Didn't have a lot of time, didn't finish this side actually. I don't always finish them, but it's, as you can see, it's the same one that I did for the tutorial for my students, which is where I sometimes will do that. I can't copy work much. My career as a forger is finished before it starts, unfortunately, but I can copy concepts of things like that and see where I want to take things and see how the picture develops to be worthy of a tutorial. And sometimes I also just do it so that I can disappear into that space myself and just make marks that end up being something. So I might finish this one day. I tend to try to finish them. Swallows. Ours have left. They've all gone now. And I really like this concept as well, of having a subject that's up quite close and reasonably detailed, but all the background is done in pan pastels, which by the end of it, it makes it all look sort of out of focus and gives depth. And if I hold this up here, you can see a teeny tiny little farmstead down there. There's a little building there and a little house with a chimney and some trees around it, and it's so far away. So it really works well, actually, to do that. And everything in pan pastel in the background, and then gouache, watercolor, colored pencils up close. And yeah, I like doing that as well. Willows. We have the masterclass for August on my Patreon was Weeping Willow, and we're going through all the trees and really, really looking at them in depth, and you'll see what I mean very shortly. So willow trees were the first one that I looked at, and I've got a lovely list of other requests from my students over there, so we're going to do all of them basically. But what I'm trying to do is keep them in context, so we don't end up with a fir tree in summer, because I know fir trees do grow in summer, but the idea is to keep the fir tree for closer to the winter time when everything else has got lost everything, and the fir tree is the only green thing around. And of course, because of Christmas, the elephant in the room is we associate those sorts of things mostly with Christmas. So I'm sort of keeping it relevant. I could paint a willow tree when it's lost its leaves, but it's not going to be the same magnificent animal that it is when it's in full leaf. So that's why I've done that. And that's how I'm going to continue with the tree tutorials, is to sort them into areas where they're supposed to be. I know some of you, I grew up in Australia, so I know that if I painted a cherry blossom tree in January, it might still work. Well, not really. It's still a bit late even for there. You know what I mean? The seasons do change, but yeah. So I'm trying to keep them relevant to the Northern Hemisphere. Makes sense, hopefully. Right, so willow tree, river, love that. It's always a peaceful thing to paint. And of course, these sorts of foregrounds. And I notice if we go back to the fox I was talking about, that I could make it into dock. I actually have done that here by adding some bits and pieces. And something I'm also using more in my work just lately, after having bought them in really, really large quantities, are these markers here, Tombos and Lyras and other things. I've also got Winsor & Newton, I've got Faber-Castell, anything you can think of, I can grab a handful out of a drawer. The reason why I'm mentioning them here is I've had a few questions about them just recently. A lot of you have tried them, have bought them in equally great quantities, only to find that they are, I don't want to swear, I'd really quite like to, because they're not much fun to use sometimes. It depends what sort of work you're doing. If you are doing a more loose, naive style where you just want a splash of colour, you might then wet them out with water, because they are actually watercolour markers nominally. But the rest of you have said what has been in my mind for ages, and that is, it looks like a 4-year-old got into the texters or felt tips. They're not easy to use. They're marketed as convenient and maybe great for beginners, but they're actually not. They're harder to use than a brush and paint sometimes. So what I'm doing with my tutorials at the moment is showing how I use them. And I have developed a couple of rules that suit my style of painting. So, you know, if you like what you see here, I've developed the rules to fit this, not some other artist's painting. Everybody uses them differently, and some people have mastered them. Hats off to you, because they're not always easy to use. And but I'm using them more and more so that I can sort of pass on what I learn. All right, this one again, where we got our panels from. This is where the green sky first started as well, because I painted the sky and I had obviously gone into the wrong colour, but I liked it so much with the other colours that I thought, you know what, I'm going to try that a few times. Not greatly keen on the bit of blue I've put in there. This is a gouache sky, and the background is all gouache as well. In fact, there's no watercolour in this one. Lots of pan pastels, my smudgy leaves, there is a tutorial on that. The berries, there are tutorials on those, and of course my ubiquitous little farmsteads in the background. I like doing that. And my beloved blackbirds. So, you know, lots of my favourites in here. And I think you could say this is a real comfort piece. It's sort of the thing that I return to when I want to reground my practice. Sometimes I look at my artwork and I think, oh, there's a bit of someone else's influence in there because I've looked at something, or my brain has recalled something I've seen, say, 6 months beforehand, and then spat it out as my own idea. I only know things are my own idea when I can see a clear development of ideas through my sketchbooks, which is why I date my sketchbooks and I keep the work in there so I can see it. I don't get rid of anything, even when it's horrid. I don't get rid of it because then I know it's my own idea and not something that my brain has latched onto and said, yeah, this is what you came up with in April. Remember? Don't you remember? No, I don't remember. It's not mine. It's foreign to me. So every now and again, I like to come back to a piece like this that makes me think of how my roots are. This is where I This is me. Yeah, so it's blackbirds and all the nice elements that you would expect. But yeah, that's where the panels came from. Another one of these, again, I was obviously stressed because it's very much the same river and the same trees. And actually, this is the first time I've really realised that I've just been painting the same picture. It's been a stressful month with notar, or our lawyer appointments for our house sale and the purchase of a new house, which I'm not in love with. I've got to do some changing to that. But anyway, same picture. And foxes again. Loving foxes. I love doing these little panels. And with my foxes, I don't paint them sitting there looking at us. I paint them doing things. I really like painting them looking at something that we can't see, and we're never going to know. Like I said, my sniffing fox in the last one, no idea what he's sniffing at. He's interested in it, but I can't tell what it is. And I kind of like that. It keeps their world secret. They're going about their daily business. I don't do that with birds as much, funny enough. Birds tend to be sort of, that's the subject and they're looking at us, but I like to paint foxes doing things. So these are doing things. He's looking at something, he's looking at something else, and yeah, could be the same fox. Yeah, so it's fox season. This is a tutorial on my Patreon, a early autumn cottage, and I've got another one that I've had a few requests for. I won't out you here, I promise, because, sorry, just trying to find it. It's been requested several times and it's not in this book. Okay, I shall see. No, other book. Hang on, I'm not far away from it. Let's see if I can find it. Actually, even grabbed it. So, I've had a few requests for an autumn cottage, this one. And I am going to paint this. For those of you who were kind enough to ask me to, I am going to paint this one, but I didn't because when I did this tutorial and recorded this tutorial, autumn wasn't far enough advanced. It just didn't seem right. I looked out the window and trees have still got green leaves on them. So I'm going to do this one later on in the autumn, probably November, when we need cheering up because we want a bit of orange in our lives then. So what I've done instead is I've made two tutorials. So this one is the one that's up now, and that is the early autumn cottage, where the bright spring green has sort of gone off the landscape, and it's starting to turn. It's a browny green, a lot more yellows and browns in the green, and still a few little bits and pieces where it's struggling to keep up, and a bit of light on the hill there, but by and large, the year's had it. And that's, we're going into the next season. So that's that. And I love doing these stone walls. Again, I've got tutorials on that. I won't keep you here, longer than we need to. Right, that's that one. Right, what have we got in here? I'll try and do this without banging the camera. There's not a lot in this one. Right, July, that's where we got to last week. So this is August. Yes, this is August. Again, foxes, an imaginary house. I'm not quite sure whether the house fits. Again, this scene doesn't exist. It only exists in my brain, and I've put all of my elements in that I like. So the pan pastel background to make it look blurry in the background, which brings all of this front part into sharp focus. But what I've really painted here is a bit more of a townhouse. It doesn't really belong in such a big country setting. However, I'm going to explain that away by saying the village is over here and you can't see it. Like I said, I tell myself stories. So the village is over here and this is the house on the edge of the village. How's that? Let me know how I'm going. Nice rock for the fox to sit on. Again, looking at something, we're not going to know what it is. And foreground stuff. Really enjoying making these sort of Queen Anne's lace and cow parsley, that sort of thing. Any one of those things. Little cottage in the background, and I spent a lot more time on the house than I spent on the fox. That happens sometimes, you can probably tell, but I love doing these houses, and I loved all of the layers Now, these layers on this house were very much built up with NeoArt 6901, the new Caran d'Ache one, and lots of smudgy Neocolor 2 in here to fill in everything. Couple of what I do here when I paint something like this, I'll start out with blotches of colour. Then I'll look at the blotches of colour and I'll decide what they're going to be. I've done a few sort of random leaves here just using the blotches of colour and then coloured in negatively around the leaf so that you can, if I bring that up a bit and get rid of the shine, you can see there those little leaves here. So the background just sort of fills it all in. They actually look more like seaweed than anything else, but people don't tend to focus on one thing unless you point it out, as I've just have. They'll look at the picture as a whole and then they make up their mind based on that. So this is a sort of getting away with murder picture. Badges. I want to do a tutorial for my patrons in November, I would think, if I look at my video scheduling, featuring badges. And of course, I made a mask of the moon and then did my pan pastel around it and then all sorts of gouache. I'm using more gouache than watercolour at the moment, partly to remind myself that I've got it, so better use it. And also bringing back some of the purples that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago on here. There's a purples video where I swatched a few of my favourites and so forth, because I was never a purple person, but there are times and places for it. So this is a moonlit scene, which is why it's bright. Gosh knows what's happening to the tides with the moon that close to the earth, but anyway, purple is perfect for moonlit areas. So if you've not used it before and you're thinking, well, I don't have a lot of use for purple, you'd be amazed how many landscape artists actually say that. You can just do the grass, make your highlights on the grass for a night picture in purples and mauves. I've added it into the sky as well. There's a bit on the rock, and gosh, this tree is almost transparent. If you have a look, I'm not sure I've finished that. Oops, banged the camera. That's par for the course. I'm not sure I finished that tree anyway, but yeah, I want to do some badges in November, that period between Halloween where it's all been exciting, even for those of us who don't really celebrate Halloween in the same way. There's this November in Europe we don't do Thanksgiving, you see, so we've got this period between one festival and the next big one. So I'm going to liven it up with badges. Collage. I don't know what I thought actually, but again, same thing. I wanted to do some pigeons. I feel really sorry for this one because he must feel a little bit like a spare wheel. These other two are so obviously into each other, and then you've got this other poor little guy who's sitting there. So I do feel sorry. I'll probably come along and put another one in at some point. Half of these leaves are collaged, and they're collaged onto papers that I colour myself, just watercolour, gouache, neocolor, and then I've put a lot of neocolor on the top and rubbed that with my finger to smooth it and make it nice. So yeah, I don't know if you can tell, but some of the leaves aren't painted, they're collaged afterwards. I'll often do that because I like the depth that it brings. I also enjoy just sometimes a moment or two of collage. And sometimes if I want to hide something, or if I've worked away at something and the paper just won't accept anymore, I'll put a collage leaf over it because I'm still not happy with that particular bit. And a few of my compositions have actually ended up that way. It works really well, especially, like I said, if you've got something you can't shift, or if you've dropped paint somewhere. I think you've all seen the bright red mark I dropped up here. A little bit of ink, which would have been nice if it was framing, but anyway, it's sketchbook, so it doesn't matter so much. Love my little huts and houses and the rolling hills. We've got some harvest happening. The trees were nowhere near like this. This was done on the 17th of August, and they weren't like that. They're still not like that now, but I know they will be, so I'm excusing that. But yeah, really I like the texture that mixed media gives. So yeah, but I'll have to make him a little mate as well. Garden doesn't look like that this year. This is Beryl the Peril, and that's our personal squirrel that we have in the garden. She's quite tame in that, well, she's told us off all the time. And as I've said in past videos, you don't know you've been told off until you've been told off by a squirrel. And it sounds so ridiculous in her little squirrely voice. So it's really hard to take her seriously, but you mustn't laugh because, yeah, that's not, just don't laugh. Raspberries. We had a nice crop last year. We had absolutely nothing this year. We also haven't had much in the garden at all. But the reason is our own fault. We haven't put any time into it because moving, something had to give. So I've sort of neglected the garden. But the raspberries last year were really nice. And Beryl was in the middle of everything. This is our tame blackbird also in the garden. I hope we have a nice blackbird in our next house as well. I'm sure we will. But I love painting blackbirds. They're one of my favourite birds, and I love painting them on just random things. This is a panel that started out, I don't know if you can see there, some of the leaves are quite blotchy. The whole bit was just painted, and then I picked out leaves in it. Again, the way I do in the foreground, I said, make blotchy marks and then look for patterns to turn into something. On this occasion, I painted these little round leaves and a blackbird, which is nice. So yeah, I think everybody has a favourite thing that they keep returning to. Maybe it's a sign of how much stress we've had this month that I keep coming back to my favourites. Right, where are we here? This here is the tutorial that I did with my students to show you that this is sort of how I'm approaching these tree tutorials. Keeping everything nice and exploded so you can see step by step, and a little bit of a palette as well. And then I put those together as a PDF so that they are something you can print off, maybe laminate and keep. Foxes in forests, another just playing around with things, and my fox was actually I think he's got fleas. We've disturbed him mid-scratch. But yeah, I like these nice intertwined trees, really deep forest. And because it's coming into autumn, I've taken some of the leaves away by putting bits of blue neocolour here, where the sky is starting to show through, which is quite interesting, I think. And again, it reflects the changing seasons. So we've got a bit of sun coming through and some shadows, but foxes. This is the tutorial that I did with my Patreons on different fox sort of poses. And of course, this was a Thursday tutorial, I believe. I can't remember now, but it's followed by a tutorial of a fox doing something, and it'll be a different pose. So they get not only the 3 or 4, 5 poses that we do on the day, but then the following day we get a tutorial with another pose. So there's lots of ways learning to do foxes, and they're all doing something, as I said before. This one's looking at something that it's seen. This one's asleep. This little guy again, I couldn't resist doing him again. Made him a bit bigger, just slightly different. This one you've seen before as well, because I thought that was well worth developing into a tutorial. And this one, I think this one can smell foxes, hens in a hen house over at the farm. Because, yeah, I hope they're locked up securely. We've had plenty of experience of that. And a forest. And here again, you may recall me saying a while ago that you can make marks and your brain will do the rest. This is a case in point. All of these trees are just vertical lines. They're not trees. I've just pretty much taken a marker, can't even find a marker, and I've drawn a series of vertical lines. And trust me, your eye will take those and translate them into trees. It'll do what's necessary. You don't have to do too much work at all, because our brains are looking for patterns in things all the time. It's called pareidolia. if you want to look further at that. And this is why when we're children, we lay on the grass and we look up at the sky and we don't see clouds, we see dragons, we see whatever, strawberries, all sorts of things, but they're just clouds. Our brains are trying constantly to find those shapes and to make meaning of our world using those shapes. So that's what we're doing here with our art. Sometimes you can fill in a whole area. This is blobs of colour, blotches, and then vertical lines, and it becomes a forest. And I like that. I find it very relaxing to do, and it also means that it's not an overwhelming task, because you've got your subject, but then you're thinking, well, if I just paint a subject on a white page, it's not going to work quite as well. So putting some other stuff with it is better. And that's that one. Right, and the rest of it is off the page. So what I've done here with this was a Patreon tutorial, a rather long one, might I say. Let me put those aside for a second. I like from time to time to do a little zine with my patrons and show them different ways of presenting their art. Not everything has to be in a sketchbook, and not everything has to be in a frame. Sometimes you can make a little zine for yourself. You might print it and sell it as well. So this one here was a coloured cover that I just made with some random watercolours and a few bits and pieces here for the label. Bit of folding, but the real point of this was an old-fashioned sort of, maybe something you would expect an 1800, a field naturalist in the 1800s to have done. It's all jelly printed, and it's using Inktense pencils on the jelly plate, would you believe? So you get some different effects that way. It's also got pan pastel and other things, not just Inktense pencil. There's I paint onto the plate and then pull the print and work back into it with other mixed media things. So you can see some acrylic markers here for our Australian flowering gum. There is some tansy, some poppy, and some thistles, and some of it's mixed. Some of it is using acrylic and pan pastels, but actually no, this is not acrylic onto the plate. My apologies. This one is just Inktense onto the plate and then some pan pastel, and then we pull that print and go on with it. And it fits into the cover just like that. So you can use it. I mean, you could print on both sides. There's nothing stopping you. It was already a very, very long tutorial, as those of you who've watched it will know. So I just kept it simple. But that is one little zine. And I started another one as well. Again, random bits. This is some watercolour and a little bit of my Caput Mortuum Neocolor 2. And then this was the ghost print that I got from here. And I'll show you a bit more about ghost prints in a minute. Basically, with jelly printing, if you make your print and let it dry on the paper, you are very unlikely to get a ghost print that's worth using. But if you pull it before it's dry, you'll get plenty of information on the main print and enough information on the ghost print to be able to do something very, very similar. So that was sort of how this is born, and eventually one day I'll do some more things in here and finish this one. Might put some mushrooms in here. Let me know what you think. This one, like I said, this is finished, and I love these textural backgrounds. So even though these are monoprints, and you might say, well, look, what's the point? Isn't a print meant to be something that you can print endlessly and keep using, so you might earn a lot of money with just the one image? It's what I thought, and it's what a lot of people think. But the reason why I love jelly printing is the texture. I'll happily accept a monoprint because of this amazing texture that you get from it. You can't replicate it very easily. You can replicate it, but it's not easy with a paintbrush. So that's sort of why I do it. Not everybody's into it, but for those who are, I do these on a Thursdays, and that was a Thursday tutorial. Speaking of jelly prints, here is another Thursday tutorial. Again, as I said before, I love my fish, and I wanted to print a fish. You can see the texture here I'm talking about with the jelly print. There's some collaged rocks stuck on there as well, and of course the star of the show, this handsome trout. it's part of landscape painting, in my opinion. And what I like to do personally is every now and again to look underneath the water. If there's a river, we've painted plenty of rivers there, mainly the same one. But there's a whole world going on underneath the water as well. And we were able to paint that too. So this was one that I did for that. And this is the tutorial that is on my Patreon. Is how to paint this particular fish, including a new way of transferring the image, which is important. Now, this little pile here is just stuff that I've been playing around with. This is what, oh gosh, one I haven't used. This is what I mean about ghost prints. Let me find them all. Those two are different. We'll do those in a minute. This is the first print, I think. No, actually, I think it was this one. I can't even tell now. I think it was this one. And I got two further ghost prints that are exactly the same, with enough information that I can do 3 cats the same. And I'm sort of playing around with cats as a subject now in the lead up to Halloween, actually. I'm so original. And again, those textures, it's amazing the texture you can get with these methods and printing. And yes, there are gaps, I get that, but you can fill them in other ways. So at the end of the day, you'll get a complete picture. And I have actually mounted this one ready for framing. And again, there are some gaps in here, which is why I think this is the first one, actually. This is less gaps. I know my gaps by now. You can fill it in, you use what you've got basically, but it's fun. Sometimes I'll make the jelly print, the ghost print the same. Sometimes I'll do other things with it, as I have famously shown you in other videos. So we won't sort of bore you with that now. Finally, this one is again an owl print, lots of texture. Just love that background and overly large moons and things like that. But the texture of the sky, just amazing. And this, again, a cat with more. I'm almost more in love with the background than I am with the cat, bless its heart. This one is drawn onto the jelly plate with basically a Posca marker, and then lots and lots of acrylic gouache, which is why you've got these black outlines, and it's quite graphic with the outlines. When you draw onto the jelly plate before you print, the thing that you draw first will be uppermost on the final print. So that's why if you draw black outlines, you'll see all those black outlines. You won't see as much, you won't see the furry outline of the paint, which you see on the plate, but when you print, it'll look nice and crisp. Have a look at the videos, and that might make more sense then. Let me know if not. So yeah, I like that graphic look with some. Here, because of when you print, and I've put a lot of acrylic gouache over the top of my first drawing, which was all in black. Then when I pull the print, I come back in and redefine some of the areas also in black marker. And that's what I've done here. But again, look at the glow behind here and these textures. I just love that. Here, they could be stars. They could be light flares from houses and things like that. Gosh, knows what's going on in the house to get that. But anyway, you know what I mean. Yeah, the moon's not exactly round, but I dare say that will be fine. Nobody's suffered yet from it. So that is my August, what I've done in August, all of these things, bits and pieces. I hope you've enjoyed that look through my month of creation and creativity. I hope that I've got plenty for the September roundup, because like I said, we're fully into moving mode, but I'm still working. So I've still got the tutorials that I'm doing for my patrons, plus a bit of work behind the scenes for my own mental health. So I shall see you next month. Thank you so much for watching. I shall see you next week with another video, but next month there'll be another roundup. And whatever, I shall see you very soon. Look after yourselves and happy painting. I hope you get some nice creative time in and enjoy the changing seasons wherever you are. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now. Bye.